Hello, hello everyone. I think we are live. Just wanna check. Awesome. We are now live. Happy Friday, everyone. Happy Friday. Good afternoon. Hope you are all doing swell. Hello, hello. Hi, Tom. Hello everyone. Welcome to the Hoboken Public Library's Facebook page. Yes, you are on the Hoboken Public Library's Facebook page. Please share this live on your Facebook newsfeed. Don't forget to like and follow the Hoboken Public Library. If you are watching, don't forget to say hello down in the comments. Definitely want to see you all on this wonderful Friday afternoon. Looks like we have some nice weather, hopefully, fingers crossed. Hello. Hi. Thanks for joining. We're gonna go ahead and get started in a few minutes. Don't forget to share this Facebook Live on your Facebook page. Don't forget to follow and like the Hoboken Public Library. They are bringing you amazing resources all for free. Don't forget. Awesome. So why don't we go ahead and get started? If you don't know who I am, my name is Kimberley Bueno Schonig, and I have collaborated with the Hoboken Public Library to give you amazing free resources ranging from small business growth to professional career development. And today you've hit one of the presentations specifically geared towards professional career development. You might be thinking, oh, interesting. How are you able to give all this information? Well, my background is in HR and corporate. I've worked in the entire spectrum, essentially, of recruitment and termination. So I've handled resume writing, reviewed resumes, done interviews, as well as handled involuntary and voluntary terminations, along with grievances, investigations, and performance improvement plans. So with that comes with a lot of experience from what I've seen in the industry, specifically with financial services. However, the information I'm providing you can be versatile, and you can implement it and design it and use it in a way that suits you. So why don't we go ahead and get started with this slide. So today we're talking about how to measure your job performance, and you might be thinking, well, who is this presentation for? Well, the target audience for this presentation is specifically for individuals that have really 15-20 plus years of experience, or a little bit less than that. I would say that if you are an entry level or have a few years under your belt, this information is still useful for you. But individuals that also want to progress in their career and they're interested in improving or developing their career, this is a type of presentation that most likely will be very helpful for you. So this entire webinar today is going to be in 3 parts, and I've also included an extra section just to kind of talk a little bit about how you can take that if you are currently someone who is looking for a job. So we're going to go over manager meetings, measuring your performance, maintaining high performance, and then we're going to also talk about if you are someone who is currently looking for a job, how you can take all of the insights and recommendations that I'm providing in this presentation and utilize it for your job hunt. So let's go over manager meetings. So if you did not see my webinar last week, we talked a lot about how to have effective and productive manager meetings. So if you would like to go watch that webinar, I would recommend that you go on the Hoboken Public Library video section and search for it there. You can also find it on their YouTube channel, so be sure to check there as well if you can't locate it on their Facebook page. So what today I'm going to talk about specifically for manager meetings is I'm going to recap it if you did not see the last webinar. Essentially what I spoke then was if you are an employee or someone who is currently looking for a job, just take this and understand that if you do end up having a job, or if you currently are employed and you are not having manager meetings, start having manager meetings. This is very, very important. It's important for you to have these manager meetings because you definitely want to have that conversation and have a very clear communication style with your manager so you can understand exactly how you're performing. You want to take notes about your responsibilities. You want to talk to your manager about your responsibilities that you started with and talk to them about what other work or other responsibilities you've taken on since you joined. So why do you need to have manager meetings? Well, essentially, you want to have a better understanding about your performance, and you want to build a stronger relationship with your manager. There's a lot more reasons why you should have manager meetings. For example, if you currently are employed and you are looking to ask for a promotion or raise because of the responsibilities that you've taken on further, this is a great opportunity for you to kind of have that transparent conversation with your manager up front and consistently, so that way you can kind of help them and understand if starting that process is going to be something that they will choose to do. You have to understand that each company has a different promotion or raise process, and better understanding that, as well as having your manager on board so they can be an advocate for you and provide a case for you, is very, very important. You also just want to have a strong relationship with your manager, so that way if you're choosing to switch departments in your company, or if you're interested in looking for a different job outside of the company, they are someone that you want to be able to understand if it's appropriate to tell them and ask for help. Because obviously each person is different, and you want to try to figure out if they can be someone you can trust and rely on. So what we've learned from COVID is that sometimes your performance might not even be the reason you might lose your job, unfortunately. And with the unemployment rate so high right now, we've clearly seen that right now it is important for you to really understand what you've done in your job function and how you can coherently speak to that down the line, especially if you're looking for a job. Something that you can control is how you can prep yourself so you can be ready to speak about your performance. And the following slides will kind of help you understand what strategies you can implement so that way you can be confident in speaking about your performance. If you're currently an employee, it's just better for you to kind of take initiative, because then you are standing out in general. And also it kind of helps you in terms of protection, so that way you are already prepared in the event you need to look for another job. Right now, it's obviously such a crazy time. However, I have been hearing from some recruiters that the job market is changing, and it is actually changing for the better. So I do want to give some hope there. And I do want you to not give up when it comes to job hunting, because it might feel like you are applying to so many jobs and you're not hearing back, or you're getting rejection letters, or whatever it may be. Just know that you will get that job that you want. You won't always be in the situation that you're currently in right now. And especially if you're watching this live or you're watching the replay, you're already taking such a big step in trying to change your present situation. So let's talk about measuring your performance, because that is really the main topic for today's presentation. So measuring performance. Really what I want to talk about in this section of this webinar is essentially, once you've grappled how to have more productive and effective manager meetings, right? And if you haven't seen that webinar, definitely go check back to last week's webinar. You have to understand how to measure your job performance. So some recommendations that I have is create some sort of system for yourself and for your manager that can help you assess your performance yourself. So this is something where you can maybe come up with a metric system that has been approved by you and your manager and you've both agreed upon, and it's something you can bring to your manager meetings and say, hey, I just want to check in and make sure that we're on the same page about how I performed for this particular project or for my job function in general. So I have a few examples that I've laid out. So for example, if you are if your job function is managing a budget, then maybe one of your responsibilities is keeping track of what that target budget is, and if you are able to maintain that. So what you can do is just flat out write what your budget is, and if there's a timeline to that budget, and see if you were able to maintain your team to stay in that budget and for that time period. So you have to figure out and be kind of creative in terms of how you're going to measure and quantify your responsibilities and see if you're performing, because maybe what makes sense in this specific job function is if you are in charge of maintaining a budget, the whole role is if you did maintain that budget or not. So if you did maintain that budget, then I would say that you did your job. If you didn't maintain that budget, you're going to probably have to have that conversation with your manager and say, okay, these are the falls and shorts that I committed, and this is how I'm going to kind of make it up, because obviously I did something incorrect here to maintain the budget. Now I'm going to set up some sort of system to kind of ensure that this won't happen again. Again, every job function is different, every company is different, so just kind of think about that. Another example is, say for example, you're in a job that is in sales. So maybe your responsibility is to hit a target sale number. So, and reaching a certain revenue. So what you can do is figure out what was your sales target? Did you hit that? And then if want to be an overachiever, keep track of the revenue that you've brought to the company that were not from existing clients. So how many new clients were you able to onboard and take in? Obviously, this is going to vary per function, but this is just something that you can think about, so that way you can start thinking about how to translate the work that you're doing on paper. Another example that we're going to go over is if your job function includes maybe rechecking and verifying and quantifying data sets, maybe your responsibility involves making sure that there's minor errors or catching errors and and how many you were able to fix. Now, this is an easier way to quantify the work that you're doing because you can just give count numbers and quantify what you were able to fix, how many errors you found, etc., how many data sets you've worked with, and think about it in terms of the time frame as well. Because if you were able to do everything, your responsibility, in such a short amount of time, that is most likely going to show, and say for example you did it all correctly, that's going to tell your manager that you are a high performer and you're able to get the job done really quickly, and you're able to do what you can and to ensure that you are making sure those data sets are clear. Hello again, everyone. It looks like more people are hopping on. Welcome. Happy Friday. Be sure to say hello down in the comments. So again, if you are just hopping on now, we are talking about how you can measure your performance. So now we're going to go into the next section, which is all about talking about how you can maintain high performance. Welcome everyone, welcome. And for more information about library services, don't forget to visit hobokenlibrary.org. If you want to see previous webinars, be sure to head over there as well. You can definitely reach out to them. If you are enjoying these webinars, definitely send them an email and let them know you want to see more. All right, so going back into maintaining high performance. All right, so for example, if you've already come up with some sort of metric system, you were able to quantify your job responsibilities and you're able to write it down on a piece of paper. You are now, and say for example, you've had manager meetings and your manager is saying, yes, you are doing a great job, you're performing really well, I definitely want to back you up in whatever you want to do, I support you, etc. That is a good thing. And keep in mind, if you are taking an initiative with your manager and you yourself already trying to assess your own job performance, you are already most likely one of the very few employees that is doing that. And the reason why this is a good thing is because just by assessing your own job performance, you are already, in their minds and in HR's mind, a high performer because you are already double checking your work, right? You have to, essentially show that you are very serious about the work ethic that you're doing. And if you're someone who is currently unemployed, you can take all of this information, and once you find and land that job, you will essentially get to hit the ground running and set the foundation of immediately setting up your meetings with your manager, which is such a good plus, because then they'll immediately think to themselves, wow, this is a great hire because they're hitting the ground running, especially during a time like right now. And also they're taking an initiative in having manager meetings. And not only are they trying to take initiatives with manager meetings, but they're also taking initiative in trying to assess their performance, which essentially to them, that's like a good deal because, okay, not only do they feel nervous that maybe you're not able to perform up to par, but obviously they didn't hire you because they were nervous about that. But what's going to happen is sometimes what ends up happening, sometimes hires can be a miss because sometimes managers will hire someone who says they can do it, but actually they can't do it. And unfortunately, that can happen. It's rare, but we want you to make sure you're not that candidate. And in fact, not have that in the manager's mind. Not that managers will think that immediately because they're super excited to have you on board, but obviously they want to feel confident, and you as the candidate or as the employee have to continue making your manager feel like they can trust and be confident in you and your work ethic. So when you've already set those meetings and you are hearing that you're a performer and a high performer at that, let's have you maintain that high performance. And if you are someone who's unemployed with 15, 20 plus years of experience, you have to also understand that the standard is going to be set really, really high for you. Like the bar is going to be much higher because you have the experience, you already have knowledge. They hired you maybe because you already have the experience. So you have to understand that when you are taking the role or when you are applying to jobs, you have to really set the tone for yourself about how you're going to be if you are hired. So when you are maintaining a high performance, there are a few things that I think that you need to consider. You have to make sure that you're having consistent conversations with your manager about your role and how you've been performing. And you have to also consider that depending upon the role or the job or the company that you're applying for, sometimes it's not just about your responsibilities. Sometimes maybe it's about how well you work with your team. How well do you work with other departments? How well do you work with stakeholders? You have to understand that sometimes maybe your job function isn't just focused on just your responsibilities. It might be how well of a team player are you? How well do you jive with the group? Because again, if you've seen some of my webinars in the past, a lot of companies right now, the reason why some companies have chosen to just focus their effort in recruitment using sourcers, real people, leaning less on maybe programs, is because they want to have someone who is a good fit for the team. And a robot is not going to be able to assess if that person is a good fit for the team. So that's where sourcers, recruiters, hiring managers come into play. So, and why I bring this up is because I think that even though I'm talking about quantifying and measuring your performance, you also have to understand that if you are someone, or if you know someone who is not a great fit for the team and is causing huge delays in projects, you have to realize that that can be considered an issue. And you, as an employee, have to show that you're a team player. Every company wants a team player. And if you're someone with 15, 20 plus years of experience, a lot of times recruiters might think that you're not a team player. So you have to do what you can to show that you are, and that you're willing to be flexible, you're easy to work with, etc. And the next point I have on this slide is that performance conversations typically happen year end, but I would recommend that you have performance conversations or even just manager meetings, either monthly or even quarterly. As an employer, we tried to do it every 2 weeks. I've been in companies where it was quarterly. I've also been in companies where it was monthly. I've even had it where it was weekly. So it really just depends on the comfort level and if you do have things to talk about, because if you don't have things to talk about, then it might just be a waste of both of your time. So you have to understand that these conversations need to happen consistently. And keep in mind, as someone who has terminated employees, both voluntary and involuntary, my recommendation is these performance conversations typically are going to be helpful for you to better understand where you stand in the company, because sometimes even from stories I've heard from other people, they are shocked that they get laid off or fired because their performance wasn't as up to par. And I want to do my due diligence as someone who's worked in HR to bring this information to people who might not realize that they can avoid a situation where they get thrown a brick to their face by just having these performance conversations with your manager. By literally building a relationship with your manager, you can immediately try to resolve any issues that you have in your performance, or you can just get reassurance that you're maintaining high performance. All right, so something else you need to consider is you always want to follow up with your manager via email after your manager meetings so you can document what was discussed between you both. It's always good to have bullet points, kind of restating and summarizing what you guys talked about, what you're doing well, what the manager thinks that you can improve on, etc. And now what you want to do with this, say for example, there are a few points that you have to improve on. The next meeting that you have, you can talk about those bullet points that they think that you can improve on, and then figure out if you actually were able to improve on those points, which is great, because then it's like you're seeing an increase of performance. This is not to say that you're not a high performer. This is just saying, like, okay, well, you are actively doing what you can to ensure that your job responsibilities, your job function is being done to the best of its ability, and you're doing what you can to ensure that you are getting everything done right. A few other things to consider is, if you feel good about your performance, then you should be able to speak coherently to that, and you should feel and be confident. You want to be able to you don't want to feel like you can't speak about how good your performance is. Now, just keep in mind, like, how casually you speak to your manager just depends on how good of a relationship you have with your manager. But it's important that if you feel that you are doing really well in your performance, I recommend that you speak up and state it. Now, it's important that even if you are speaking about how good your performance is, you have to remember your downfalls, and you have to note that as well as you note your successes. It's always good to to acknowledge some of the things you have to improve on, and then say, hey, I've improved from it. This goes to show that I have the ability to take what I've learned and actually improve upon it. So now we have this extra section that I added here, all about measuring your job performance to help you with your job hunting. So I talked a little bit about that in previous slides, in little bits, but I did want to kind of have just one slide talking about this for all of those people, all of you viewers who are maybe watching this and feel a little bit discouraged by the job market. I do want to reiterate again, a few recruiters have came back to me and informed me that the job market is turning around, and it seems to be going in a direction that is good for everyone. So I do want to give you that piece of hope, and I just want to reiterate, do not give up. If you are applying to jobs and you're not hearing back, and you're not receiving interviews, just know you have to keep going. Find strategies. Maybe the strategy, you haven't implemented any of the strategies I've mentioned before. Try something different. Add something to your application that makes you stand out. And again, like, you have to keep in mind, if you're not writing a cover letter, sometimes you're going to be an immediate pass depending upon the company. You have to make it seem like you are invested in this particular company because you want to work for that company. And if you say, for example, you are currently unemployed and you're looking for a job, some of the tips that I've mentioned already you can implement in your own fashion, even if you don't have even if you don't have a job. So this is what I'm going to have you do. So take out a Google Doc or a Microsoft Word application, and what I would have you do is keep a running long resume with all the information and job responsibilities that you've done in all of your roles as a reference to view. So have it be its own separate document where you list out literally every single responsibility that you've done for that particular company. And keep in mind, it doesn't have to be kept to one page, because this is not the resume you're sending out. This is just a way for you to really analyze what you've done for the company and what you've done to ensure that you did your job. Now, what you want to do with this running long resume is you essentially want to take all the experience, all the responsibilities that you've done, and for a specific job posting that you are applying to, select the ones that are most relevant to that job function, because essentially what you're doing is you're crafting a new resume that is specifically tailored to that job, right? And you've done, that your manager knows you've done, and take those points out and put it onto this new resume that you plan on sending out. Because again, this running long resume with all of your information, this is going to be more than one page most likely, especially if you're someone with 15, 20 plus years of experience. So do what you can to remember everything. And on top of that, if you have documentation already about what your manager has said about your performance, or if you can think back from those conversations, you can kind of try to take what you've done successfully and implement it into a job function. So what I mean by that is, say for example, you successfully were able to achieve 15 new clientele for the company you're working for. That is a way that you and your manager have quantified, and you can add to a bullet point onto your resume. So now once you, again, the next point, once you've already made this running long resume that you're not sending out, you could always make a new version that is shorter and more relevant to the job you're searching for. So again, like I mentioned, each job description should have its own tailored resume, right? Tailored resume. So you want to be able to just pick and choose the things that are most relevant to that job description. And this is a big thing. A lot of the recruiters that I've interacted with, and it varies, each recruiter is different, but so far I've had good luck with recruiters that have informed me they're pretty good about giving specific feedback, but what you need to understand is that there are some recruiters that will be very, very specific about how your resume looks and the content in it. If they feel that the information you're providing in that resume is not relevant to the job description, they'll immediately toss it to the side. Some recruiters, depending upon the company, might look at it and say, for example, there's a piece of experience that you really just wanted to add in there because you think it brings a special insight to how you can function in that job role. Some recruiters will actually be very impressed, and they'll be excited to kind of figure out how they can get you, right? So it really is a trial and error, unfortunately, but having so much feedback from other people, and by being dedicated to ensuring that you're trying your hardest in the application process, you'll have higher chances just by making the effort to match up your responsibilities with the job function. Now keep in mind, you want to think back, maybe just check the job posting that you originally applied to when you first had that job, and you want to really think about what you've done, what you've really done to that hasn't been written down on your resume. Because sometimes a lot of people forget what they've done. They'll say like, oh yeah, actually I did do that, I just didn't think about it because it was something I could just do like the back of my hand. Well, if you can do that like the back of your hand, right, that's amazing. You could do that. You could write that on your resume. But yeah, that's something to think about, especially if you are someone who is currently searching for a job. Now, I do want to note that when you are speaking and you are in the interview process, how you speak to the recruiter about your job performance, you can take some of the tips that I've mentioned in this webinar already. For example, just being confident and know that you are a high performer, know that you can take initiative, know that you are willing to ensure that if there are improvements that need to be made, you will take an active approach, a proactive approach to ensure that you are hitting all the bases, right? You're always dotting your I's, crossing your T's. That is an ideal candidate, especially if you are someone with 15, 20 plus years of experience. Really, we got to make sure that you are, I don't want to say perfect, but you are someone that obviously is very capable of taking on the role. And really what they're looking at, they want to see if you are a good fit for the team, if you're flexible, if you're adaptable. And you can always, by having those manager meetings, you are basically saying you are adaptable, you're flexible, because you're trying to get as much feedback to improve your performance. So hopefully that makes sense. And thank you for those that joined. I will now open it up for any questions or concerns. Hello everyone. Feel free to have drop down any questions about maybe your current situation, any questions about resume writing. We have a few more people hopping on, so hopefully you can watch this replay and be able to get some more information from that. If you happen to have any questions and you're watching the replay, you can send an email to the Hoboken Public Library, and they can provide you with an answer, or reach out to me, or they'll reach out to me and I can provide an answer. Again, if you are enjoying these webinars, be sure to tell the Hoboken Public Library that you want to see more. Hoboken Public Library says, where is the best place to look for job fairs? Interesting. That is a very interesting question, because job fairs are actually more common for universities. I would say if you were someone with 15, 20 plus years of experience, attending job fairs might not necessarily be the best strategy for you. If you are an entry level, or maybe someone who is currently in college, or you have a few years under your belt, you could go to a job fair. However, job fairs are typically geared towards universities. There are some job fairs that are geared towards adults, and I would just always recommend looking to state agencies to see if they're hosting a job fair. That seems to be the best route to go to. But I would recommend, if you were searching for a job, I would try to reach out to a recruiter or apply directly on the website. Now, job fairs are, if you are attending a job fair, what I've found from attending a job fair myself is, and it's geared towards adults, is they're typically looking for someone to start immediately, which if that is your jam, that is something you're interested in, you should definitely check it out. Check with your state agencies to see if they have any schedule for job fairs. I think a lot of them right now are online and virtual, which is actually better, because then you can just take my tips from having an online interview on the Hoboken Public Library's Facebook page, the tips from there, and implement it on the virtual job fair. Job fairs I actually haven't heard in a really long time, so it's such a good question, such an interesting question, but I do know a lot of them right now are online. I think if you're someone who has 15, 20 plus years of experience, I think your best bet is actually reaching out to a recruiting agency rather than going to a job fair. And I think that if you're someone who is struggling with finding recruiting agencies, there are a ton. There's like Beacon Hill Staffing, there's like Green Key Resources. A lot of them are, if you're based in New York metro area, you can just search up on LinkedIn recruiting agencies. And what ends up happening with the recruitment agencies, they'll post a job posting, not telling you what the company is, but they'll say that they're looking for people to apply to this job, and the recruiting agency will essentially do the interview with you first to kind of determine if you're a good fit. They'll also be the ones to help you with the interview process and kind of give you some tips on how to present, etc. The only downfall I would say with working in a recruitment agency is that sometimes you're going to be working as a contractor, so you're going to be getting paid through them rather than directly with a company, which is very common. But they do offer some permanent roles and temp to perm roles where you would eventually be a W-2 employee with the company directly. Sloan says, how many years of experience would you recommend highlighting on a resume? Years of experience. So if you are someone who has 15, 20 plus years of experience, I would say I guess I don't really look at a resume in terms of years of experience. The way that I would look at a resume and the way someone else would look at a resume is to see how long you've been in the workforce. So I would say you want to show that if you are someone with 15, 20 plus years of experience, you want to show a balance of showing that you've been in the workforce long enough. But for example, being in a workforce and you're with a company and you're just hopping every 5 months, that is not necessarily a good look to a recruiter. They're gonna, and a company in general, they're gonna be worried that you are just going to stay with them for 5 months and then leave. It's kind of like a red flag almost. But say, for example, you've been with a company for maybe the entire 15, 20 plus years of experience. Your resume will already show how long you've worked with that company. So all you really need to do is just focus on filling up that page with your experience. But this is where my other resume template that I showed will help, because having just only years of experience, your responsibilities on one page is not going to be as useful or beneficial for the recruiter. Having that alongside your achievements from working at a company for so long is better. So I would do that type of strategy. If you've worked for a company maybe 2 years if you worked for a company the last like 7-10 years, and you've worked for like 4 different companies for maybe 2 years, I would say try to put as many companies as you can on that resume, and just have a commonality of like 2-3 bullet points. I would say 3 bullet points actually. Two bullet points is not really good luck, but 3 bullet points on each of those companies, and make sure you show how long you've worked for that company. So on the resume template that I've mentioned in a different webinar, it's always important to list out how long you've been with that company, because a company is not going to look at your resume and say, immediately only think of how many years of experience, but they're going to see how long you've also worked for that company, if that makes sense. And I would also recommend, for your question, Sloan, is I would try to showcase how many years of experience based upon the job description, because maybe most job descriptions will specifically ask for X amount of years of experience. So you want to try to showcase that in your resume. So if they're asking for 8 years of experience, you need to try to show that you've had 8 years of experience in that industry. So maybe that's like a way better approach, rather than trying to see how many years of experience you've had, because it's really just dependent upon that job posting. So I think that might actually be a better strategy, but also implementing all the other things that I've already said. Hopefully that answers your question, Sloan. Laura asks, how much do they charge? I'm assuming you're talking about recruiting agencies, and I would say recruitment agencies that ask you to pay them a fee, do not go there. That is not a true recruitment agency. The candidate that is looking for a job should never be paying a recruitment agency or someone or an individual to apply to jobs. What actually happens is a recruitment agency will take a look at your resume and determine if you're actually someone they can fill. So they're looking at you in terms of how fast they can fill your role, because essentially the company that you end up working for pays your fee. So what a recruitment agency is going to look at, right? There's different levels. Some recruitment agencies will accept literally every single individual, which is a good thing, but can also be a bad thing, because if they accept every single person, every single individual, they're going to probably most likely prioritize the ones that have a better resume, because they know they can fill their job and they can get them a good job. For someone that may not necessarily have the resources to develop a good resume, or doesn't necessarily know how to improve their resume, they might just end up being forgotten or just being seen as a number, and might not necessarily get the good roles that they wanted to. Personally, when I first started job hunting, I had a lot of interactions with the recruitment agencies, and there's a lot that are good out there. There's also a lot that are really, really awful. And, it's really just a matter of understanding that most recruitment agencies look at you as a head that they need to fill. A head for a role that they need to fill, because recruitment agencies essentially you have to almost think of them as like salespeople. They have to sell the person that they are advocating for, and they have to fill that role with a person. that is how they get paid. They get paid by commission. So every single person that they fill, they get paid by that company that person ends up working for. And no, if someone is specifically saying you need to pay me if you want to get access to these job applications, I would steer clear from them, just because that is not how a professional recruitment agency should be running. And it's just something that the recruiters that I worked with have never been in a situation where they get paid by the candidate. So hopefully that helps. And again, right now, I have some connections in the recruitment world and with people who do work in recruitment agencies. And right now they're saying that the job market is kind of going in a way that's very beneficial for people who are searching for a job. So honestly, if you're looking for a job right now, keep going. The light is at the end of the tunnel, and I believe that you can get it. And this is information I literally got today, because I try to keep in contact with recruiters to kind of make sure that I am up to date with the industry. So just know that right now the market has shifted, and there seems to be a lot of jobs opening up. Now it varies industry to industry, so just keep that in mind. This doesn't mean that if you start seeing companies doing layoffs, it just might be that company is not profiting. Laura says, thank you. Could you do some mock interviews as a workshop? It would be nice to practice. Yeah, definitely. I'd be happy to work with Heidi to see how we can do that. Maybe we can do a Zoom meeting, maybe perhaps, and I can act as the employer of a company and ask questions. I think that might be more beneficial than just doing slides, and I can give real-time feedback for the individuals. I'll ask Heidi and see if we can do that. That's a very good idea. Are there any other questions about recruitment, about recruiting agencies, about how to get seen? Again, right now, and I've tested this recently, cover letters are so important. If you are not writing a cover letter that is specific to that company, it's not. Most likely, again, like what I said before in my other webinars, you are probably going to be at the bottom of the pile because there are other candidates that are already taking the extra time to write a cover letter saying why they want to work for that specific company. And just know that it's a process. You are going to get a lot of rejections, and sometimes what you need to do with that rejection email is come back to the recruiter and say, hey, thanks for letting me know. What can I do to improve my resume, or what can I do to improve myself as a candidate? And that is a good strategy. Just making sure, no questions. All right, so it seems like we don't have any more questions I want to say. So thank you all so much for sticking with me till the end. This presentation was all about how to measure your job performance, and we had some really good questions. So if you're watching the replay, hopefully you enjoyed. If you have any questions, if you're watching the replay, just reach out to the Hoboken Public Library and they'll get back to you as soon as possible. And again, if you are enjoying these webinars, please let them know. Please let the Hoboken Public Library know that you're enjoying, so that way we can continue doing this. If you have any ideas on what type of webinars you want to see in the future, or maybe if you want to see something in particular, just let them know and we can try to make it happen. Thank you all so much for sticking with me till the end, and don't forget to follow and like the Hoboken Public Library. For additional resources and information, just head over to thehobokenlibrary.org, and they will provide you with a plethora of amazing resources. So I'll see you soon. Bye!